Welcome back, everybody, to the Slow Pitch Podcast. And over on the other side there, I see Lane. Lane, how we doing?
Doing great, Rob. How are you today?
Good. I'm doing well. That's good. I'm glad you're doing well. It's almost the weekend, so for us, but for whoever's listening, it's probably who knows what time. It could be in the middle of the night. We don't know. What are we talking about today?
Well, Rob, I thought we'd talk about a webinar that you and I both watched this week from VidYard about the service they're offering. Maybe talk about the message of how they see their service being used, and maybe some ways that you might see other ways to use it. That
makes sense to me. Okay, so yeah, that was a pretty good webinar because it gave you an idea of how to use it almost. So for the people listening, what is VidYard? So we can get that to make sure everybody understands what VidYard is. What is it? Can you describe that for me?
Yeah, so I had never heard of them before this webinar, but VidYard is a video hosting service. They help you record the videos with the intention of sending those videos in emails, and they track the statistics for that, how much of a video was watched, how many times it was watched, all that kind of good stuff.
So it's kind of like you can create a short little clip of video to send a message in a sales setting via email. They can see you, they can see a little GIF or GIF or however you pronounce that, and then decide whether or not they want to watch it. And then they watch it and you can know that they've watched it for how long. Is that what you're saying? Kind of like that, right?
Yep.
All right. So for those of you listening, this is one of the more powerful tools you can have in your arsenal, but it is obviously not the only tool, but this is a great tool to have in your arsenal for a good sale. So let's get started.
You're listening to the Slow Pitch Podcast, a podcast about selling less and closing more.
All right. So Lane, VidYard, you kind of described what it is.
Right.
Tell everybody kind of what the webinar was like. What did we learn? What are some of the things that we picked out of that? And I'll add to as well. But
so Rob, before we do anything, I think we need to make explicitly clear that this episode is not sponsored by VidYard. It's just something we watched and we wanted to talk about. We will set up a link on theslowpitch.com.
Yeah. And on that link, just understand that it costs you nothing extra to buy it. If you buy it, great. It doesn't cost anything extra. They're just going to give us a little bit for helping promote it. It's kind of a way of marketing, really. And so it doesn't really mean that we're going to say anything better or worse. We're going to give you our honest feedback as to what we think of the program. And I've used it. And I think it's really important for people to understand that the program is a little bit dynamic in things that you can do and how you use it. And I think that's what's really important to get out of this. So let's talk a little bit about what it is that VidYard is and what did they say that the program could do. Lane, you want to start us?
Yeah, there's a couple points that I took away that I thought were very interesting. One, they really emphasize that it's a way for you to show your personality and portray your intended tone when you're, sending out your essentially cold emails and just introducing yourself. And they also pointed out that, they specifically said no one is using video in emails right now. And they say it's highly effective. I kind of wondered about if VidYard isn't the best kept secret because they've been around for 5 or 10 years. And if it was that highly effective, I kind of wonder, why isn't everyone doing it?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know why more people aren't using it. I do know that, it is hard to send video through email. I know that there's really not a way that you can just embed a video into an email because usually the file sizes are too large. So what they do or what they've done is they've converted things over to a GIF or a GIF, depending on how you want to pronounce that. And what that does is it makes it so that the program can embed into an email. And I know there's integrations in there. But if you use Outlook, it's not exactly the same where you can copy and paste some stuff. Basically copy and paste the GIF along with some links so you can put that in your email in Outlook. But if you're using Gmail or you're using some other programs that they have in there, it literally will integrate together so that you can, essentially email from VidYard's program itself through your email platform. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, and I think that's the interesting part is that in your process of doing sales, if you can use VidYard, there's a benefit to that. So I think let's talk about how the ways that they said that you could use it. I think one of the things they talked about that I remember them talking about was if you have an estimate that you want to share with somebody that has some complicated parts or where questions usually come up, that's a good opportunity to share this video link where you can say, hey, here's an estimate. Let me explain some issues that kind of come up in an estimate sometimes. Now that's what they said. And Lane, you and I both know based on our conversations.
Yep.
What do we think of that?
Yeah, you don't send an estimate. You want to do that in person.
Yes, I would never use VidYard to send an estimate over and have them have this video explain the problems with my estimate. It's like, hey, here's an estimate, here's my problems.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not the way you want to come across, right? So what I would rather do is I would rather sit down with somebody on a Zoom call and share my screen, or I would sit down in person and go through this estimate and say, okay, here is what this is saying. Here is what we're committing to. Here's what you're committing to, client. And is there anything that stands out to you that shouldn't be? Is something wrong? Is there anything in here that's incorrect? And what that does is it really makes them commit to what you have there. And I will say this, when I do that 9 times out of 10, and maybe even higher, 9.5 out of 10, everything goes through just fine. And I sometimes will find, can you word this way? Because I know that when we get to the finance person, or when I know that when we get to this, that's what they're looking for. Remember when we met, we talked through, that's what they want. Those types of things, especially the size of the company. If you're with a bigger size company, you end up with some of that if you can't get in front of all those decision makers. So when you go through that estimate, you're fine tuning and tweaking. You're not saying, here's my estimate. You read it, figure it out. And by the way, these are the areas where people have stumble through this estimate and they can't figure out what I'm saying. I would rather make sure that it's clear. And if they need more stuff added, I can easily add that. So that's one of the things I remember them talking about. Is there anything else that stood out to you that you remember how they use it?
Yeah, the one of the big things they do is they use it for sending like introductory emails, kind of the cold call version of an email.
Yep.
And they highly recommend that you customize your short little video, maybe holding up a little whiteboard with a person's name on it so that it gets their attention. It increases the chance of someone actually clicking the video to watch it.
Yep.
And then of course they also recommend you keep that really short, maybe 15-30 seconds, just enough to kind of capture their attention and get someone to act upon it.
Yeah. And I think that's actually a smart way to use it. From a cold calling standpoint, and I don't know what you think, but is there anything you would do to improve on that? Anything come to mind for you?
Yeah, I don't know that just based on watching their presentation that I necessarily have ideas on how to improve on that. I do question the amount of time you might need to spend customizing 15 to 30 second videos. How many of those can you do in an hour and send out? I see the benefit, but I also worry about how much time you end up
spending on creating videos.
Exactly.
Yeah. And she talked about that a little bit for a very brief moment. Yeah. And I think one of the things she talked about is if you're going to craft a message using VidYard, you are going to need to do a little bit of planning, whether that's writing something down, kind of thinking about it, maybe doing a couple of tries to get it to come across correctly on the video. So it's not going to be nailed perfect every time. The first time, most people won't. And so she's saying, if you do that, you might get 6 of those videos done in 1 hour based on what her numbers were. After you get good at it, you take a few minutes, and then you got to go through the process of sending it and everything else. So every hour you can get 6. I think that's what she says, wasn't it? 6.
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah, because she used the example of checking LinkedIn, seeing what school they went to. Maybe you could customize the subject line with the school mascot, or something just to get their attention. You really get them to open the email first.
Yeah. And so I think, to me, all that's good, but I would almost come to you and say, Lane, if you were using this, I would say to you, what she's saying is good information. But let me ask you this. If you're a regular, normal salesperson, that's kind of the first way people do that. Like, think about it. When you're in person, before VidYard, before you would go in there and you'd walk in, you'd look around their office and look for things that are similar. Oh, you went to this school, and you're talking about that school. Oh, you have a boat on the wall, a picture of a boat. That must be your boat. Or there's a fish on the wall, or whatever it is. You're going to find something in that office to talk about, right? I tend to feel like that's not the way to go. My goal is to figure out what their personality is so that I can speak their language. So are they a high D? Are they II? Are they a C? Are they an S? That's where you'll have more of a message. So if you're going to talk to a C, you're going to use a VidYard message that's going to be more focused to a high C. If you're going to talk to an S, you're going to talk to an S style person. That message has to come across that way. So if you're talking to an S, you might say, hey, listen, I know you've got a pretty big size team there, and you're probably going to want to work through with them some of these concepts. But I got to thinking, maybe it might make sense. Maybe not, but it might make sense for us to have a quick 5-minute conversation between you, maybe a couple of your key team members that can help make some decisions as whether or not we should even talk some more. And maybe that's the way you have that conversation starter, if you will. Now, layer on top of that, I would look at it and say, do you do a sales cold call that way? Or do you do it as a precursor to a sales call, or do you do it after a sales call and you've actually had some sort of a conversation and you do something to layer on top of that? So how you use it is kind of up to you, but there's options either way, right? But to me, I feel like there was things that she said that was good, and there was things that would agree with.
So let me ask you this. So how can you try to figure out, I know you can't do it definitively, but how can you try to figure out what someone's personality type is if you haven't even talked to them before yet?
That's a really good question. So there's a couple ways. One is if you look at their LinkedIn profile, a lot of times you'll see, based on the messaging, you can see some things that will give you clues and hints. That doesn't necessarily mean they're 100% accurate, because sometimes other people professionally write their profile.
Right.
But if you have a high D personality, their sentence structure and their statements are going to be a little shorter, a little more curt. They're going to be more about me. I did this, and then I did this, versus somebody that's like an S who's going to say, my team did this and my team did that. It's going to be a little longer form of information. It's going to be more detail. High C might have more detail, might be a little more analytical. You might look at what kind of groups they follow. You might look at the type of people that they're connected to, the type of people that they follow, not so much groups, but the people. So if somebody that follows somebody like a Bill Gates versus somebody that follows like a Gary V, two different style personalities, right? If they're following one versus the other, you might find that if they're following Bill Gates, they're probably more like a C style personality, because they like that analytical side that he has. And that's the kind of messaging that he likes to put out there. Talks about his favorite books and all those kinds of, so there's different things that you can get clues from. Does that mean it's accurate? No, that's one thing. Second piece is that one website called Crystal Knows, and we'll put a link on the slowpitch.com to see it. But Crystal Knows is another one where you can tie it to your LinkedIn. You can enter their LinkedIn profile in there, and it'll pull back from their profile what they believe is their personality profile. And then you'll have to test it, and you have to look at it. And you have to figure out, is this accurate or not? But it's pretty good. It's not 100%, but let's say it's 80% accurate. That's a better chance than just doing it yourself blindly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would take 80% accuracy over zero, because if I can craft that initial intro email towards a personality type and be reasonably confident that I'm hitting it, then I think that's a huge win. Yeah.
I'm going to stop this conversation right now. If you're finding value in any one of our episodes, we want you to share it with somebody else. Just tell somebody, hey, go listen to these guys. This has been good. Second, give us a review. Tell us what you think. And the third thing, hit that subscribe button so that you always get updated every time we release an episode.
We'd really appreciate it. Now back to the show. So Rob, one of the other things that I really liked about VidYard that they talked about was being able to have the statistics on the video, how many times the video has been watched, how far along the person watched the videos. Did they watch 10 seconds of your 30-second video, or did they actually finish the video? All that kind of fun stuff. Yeah,
that is probably the most powerful part of this, I think, is the stats. So if you have a video that you send somebody and they watch it, in your video, let's say, is 30 seconds long, and they watch 5 seconds, what does that tell you? Especially if you've already had you've had a conversation with them, you feel like it's a possible sale, and then they get the message, they look at it for 5 seconds, and they don't ever come back. What does that tell you?
I think they're probably not all that interested.
Yeah, I would think so too. And you have to verify it, but it gives you a start to be an indicator. And so if you found that to be the case, how would you verify that?
Well, I don't want to look like I'm a creeper, so I'm not going to tell them, hey, I know you only watched 5 seconds of my 30-second video. I'm not stalking you. I think that's personally, I wouldn't want someone to say, haha, I know you only watched 5 seconds of my video. Don't lie to me. But I guess I might follow that up with either a quick call or an email, and just say, hey, I just want to touch base and see if this is something you're really interested in. If not, no worries. We'll still be here if you have the need. Just let me know.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with calling out that you're stalking, but I wouldn't do it in such a way that you would say, hey, I saw you only watched it for 5 seconds. I wouldn't do that. But what I would do is I might email them and say, hey, I noticed you didn't really get a chance to take a look at the video, and that's okay. Sometimes that means that there's very little to no or zero interest in talking again. And if that's the case, that's okay. I don't mind. Just simply drop me a note and tell me that on the way, reply to me and let me know. or saying something like, give me a courtesy email back so that I know. And I always like to throw the word courtesy email in there, because it's like, how do you read the words courtesy email, send me a courtesy email back, and not do it? To me, I feel like the only way that you would call out the fact that you know that would be more of like, hey, I noticed you didn't get a chance to really watch it. Maybe you're running out of time. Maybe you've been busy. Maybe now is not a good time for us to even proceed, or there's zero interest. And if that's the case, would you mind just shooting me a note back so I know there's zero interest? Just send me a courtesy email so I know. That's how I would use it. And I wouldn't want to come across as a stalker. And I don't think I've ever been called a stalker because of that, but maybe they do under the breath. I don't know.
Well, I know you're a total stalker, but
Well, I think the other way that I would look at using VidYard is, and this is kind of probably a no-brainer to most, but one of the ways to do that is to just, after you've already had your initial call, you've already had a good conversation, there's some form of interest there, you don't know if there's a lot of pain in there yet or not. A good time to send an email like this with a VidYard video is to say, hey, I really appreciate, and you're looking at the camera and you're saying, hey, I really appreciate your time spending a few minutes with me to kind of get an initial conversation. I just want to prepare you for the next call. The next call, we're going to talk about 1, 2, 3, whatever that is, A, B, C, I don't care. The top 2 or 3 topics you want to talk about. And when we have those conversations about that, I want you to understand, if at any time you think now is not a good time for us to continue talking, or you feel like we're not going to be a good fit, I just want you to feel comfortable telling me it's not a good fit. And that's okay with me. Okay. So I look forward to our meeting, and, I know we're set up for whatever. I mean, have your script ready, but whatever that is in your next meeting. And I look forward to sitting down with you then. And that's it. Leave it at that. But what it does is it really says in a way that's got the tone to it. So imagine if I send you that email written out. First of all, you got to read it. Who wants to read right nowadays?
I want to read, Rob.
Well, you're the only one that wants to read anymore. Right? Everybody else wants to watch the video.
Well, and this is I was going to mention this as well. As to me, you need to include at least a fair amount of that information in the email as well, rather than just here, watch my video. Because people like me, and maybe there's not many of us, but I would much rather take a moment to quickly read that and go, yep, rather than go, oh, how I got to watch a video. How long is this? I got better things to do.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So in your email, when you send it to them, that's exactly right. I would put in there, hey, I'd like to have you watch this 30-second, whatever number of seconds it is, and be exact, video. And I'm going to hit on these couple bullet points, 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. And so it might be as simple as, or in this video, I'm going to hit on what we're going to talk about, how long to expect, and what the outcomes should be from that conversation. And that's really what you're saying in that video is, hey, listen, I know we're scheduled for this day, this time, probably going to be about 30, 45, 60, whatever the number of minutes is that you've decided and agreed upon. That's already been done before you left that last call, right, Lane? That's what you're supposed to be doing, right?
That's right.
So, right. So now you're saying it in a video one more time, this is the day, this is the time, here's how long we're meeting. We're going to talk about X, Y, and Z, whatever that is. And they should be related to pain messages. So we're going to talk about some of the frustrations you've had with, and we're going to talk about some of the things that you've done to try to fix these things. Those are the pain questions you're going to start to throw in there a little bit to get them prepped and primed and ready for that conversation. Then honestly, at the end of this meeting, we're going to decide whether or not we're going to take another step forward and have another conversation, or we're done. And that's okay either way. So I just want to make sure you're comfortable. And what you're doing versus writing all that out versus what's in the email, it's 2 things. One, that people want to read, they can see some of that. They don't have to read all of it that you're going to say. The other thing you can do is they can watch it, but they can understand the tone that you have. I don't know how many times you've written an email, Lane, where you've said something and the person interpreted the tone wrong. Have you ever had that?
Oh yeah. And it's another one of those pain points of I write an email, then I sit there and I know I have to rewrite this again because it may not be interpreted correctly. And how many times do I rewrite this email before I actually send it? Yeah.
So like, to me, I agree with you. I think VidYard cuts a lot of that time out in terms of trying to figure out how you're going to say it perfect without having to misinterpret it. It's like, if I said to you on a video, I'm really looking forward to meeting with you. We're going to talk about these things. And at the end of the thing, don't worry about it. If you're not interested, or if it's not time for us to go continue talking, or if you just don't think we're a good fit, that's okay. But if I sound that way and I look that way and I'm squinting my face like it's painful, like, it's okay. They see the emotion, they see the tone, they know that he means it. He means it. That's legit. It's not just what he's writing, right? So that's the key, and that's the useful part, I think, to VidYard. Not the let's have them try to figure out where my problems are in my estimate. That's nice if you want to be like a regular salesperson. So that's how I would use it. And I know that one of the things that I would use it with, a better way that I could think of using it even still would be a team welcome. So, hey, you've been onboarded. We've already done the onboarding video. We've gotten started. I've told you what we need to do, what we need to have ready for the next conversation, or what you need to get done for me. So I might, in the onboarding process, right, I might say, hey, you need to send us this, or you need to send us that, whatever, so we can get started. All that stuff is part of the onboarding. But once they're onboarded, what if your team does a little video? These are the people that are going to be involved in your project. So here's so-and-so, and here's Joe, and here's James, and here's whoever you want to have showing. You can show all those people and say, hey, welcome. We're looking forward to working with you, that kind of thing. You could do a team welcome. And because of today's world being virtual, and because of today's world being a little bit distant sometimes, and people can do work all around the world, why not? I mean, if I'm in a different state, in a different time zone, and I send you a message and my team's welcoming you, and you've got 4 people saying hi, and we're looking forward to it, what a difference that can make in terms of building a relationship with that new client. So I think that's, and I think that's really the way that I would look at VidYard is it's more about not getting the sale. It's about building a relationship long-term. There is nothing wrong. I would even look at it and say with VidYard, I would even say after 2 months of working with a client, maybe you do a quick check-in video. Hey, we've been looking at this. We've been working together for 2 months. We think things are going pretty good, but we don't want to assume anything. We think you might have some thoughts on how things could be better as working with us. We'd love your input. And invite them to go fill out a form or fill out a survey of some form that's specialized and directly related to their project. And I could do another show on how to do that kind of conversation and get so much information, and we'll have to do that one day. But there's a whole bunch of ways to use VidYard to really work on a relationship building process that is all the way through from the beginning of the sale, before the sale, to after the sale, to even after you've finished your project, you're done. What's wrong with sending a VidYard that says, hey, I know we completed your project and we really enjoyed working it. We'd love to work with you again. However, we know we reached the end and it's time. But you know what's even better is when we have clients that work really well with us, we like more of those clients. And if you know somebody who had the same issues that you had and you think you could introduce us, we would love that. And by the way, here is this, whatever that might be for a reward for doing that. Or a little, what you could do all kinds of different things. You could give them a referral fee. You can get whatever you want to do, or nothing at all. Just be happy that you got a referral, asking for it and getting it. Whatever you want to do. It's all the way through the whole process of being sales to being a client to post client, all the way through. You can use VidYard. So I think it's a good tool. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm really interested in incorporating this into my my cycle.
Yeah, it's helpful. So, all right. So I hope that helped everybody else out there. And hopefully, Lane, you get stuff out of it. I got stuff out of it from what you said.
Yep.
And we got a lot of stuff out of that webinar. I think that webinar was helpful. I always think, just remember, it's not about using technology to get your sale. It's using technology to improve your relationship. And that's where you're going to get the sale. So with that, we'd love to get any input, feedback, anything where you're using VidYard differently than what we've said. We'd love to hear that. So please email us, write us, reach out to us so we know. And if you have a question of your own, we'd love to hear about it. So until next time, Lane, we'll see you.
See you, Rob.
Thank you for listening to The Slow Pitch. Do you have a question about sales? Call or text your question at 608-708-SLOW. That's 608-708-7569. Or you can email them to questions@theslowpitch.com. Slow down and close more.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Slow Pitch. And I am sure Lane wants to say hello.
Hello.
Well, you did a good job. All right. Probably not the best way to start that. Hello. All right, let's try this again. Thanks as always for listening today. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review. We really appreciate it. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Slow Pitch. We were mixed today, as always, by Johnny Polakis, and we were produced by High Gravity Studios. Music credits and other notes are in the show notes section on theslowpitch.com, and we'll be back with another episode soon.